All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. uh, we already have three people on the screen with me. That's so exciting. Um, and we were just talking about how awesome Macbeth was yesterday. So if you haven't gone to see it, please go and see. It's out, right? Like there's like a link to see it now, guys. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
go out and see it.
on Grimm's channel.
It was fabulous. All right. Let's see if I can um, do this again. I've been away for a little bit and been watching streams, been thinking a lot of things as much as I've been awake. And something that's been sort of a reoccurring theme for me, sort of like in my life, but then also in the past like couple of weeks is essentially like how you cultivate yourself in the good times or the times where you're consciously thinking or doing, and how that affects you in the bad times and when you're not thinking, or when you're like unconsciously living. So, what came to mind was something like these streams. When I'm in these streams and when I'm talking to people, um, I'm like consciously thinking about the things that we're talking about, right? Like I'm trying to engage with them thoroughly. And in my engagement with the people and in the things that I'm thinking about, I'm creating myself for the times when I'm not speaking. And I'm like almost readying myself for, the next time I encounter something or the next um, conversation I come into. And I think that we should be pretty aware of, how we're engaging with the things when we're conscious, or um, what sort of things we're ingesting. Like I love that Chris Howard will do like that. This is what I've been listening to this week or the last day or whatever, because it kind of shows you like almost what is building your psyche and your personality. Um, and how I've thought about this idea is also how it relates to my current idea of like health. Because I think when you're in a healthy place, like all around, you have you are ready and able to have the courage to encounter something new, right? So like you go to the gym and you strengthen your arms so that you have the courage to pick up your grandson. You like, I don't know, eat like a proper diet so that when you have, you encounter some new food, it doesn't just completely wreck your system. Or you know what it feels like when something wrecks your system and you know not to eat that. So you get good feedback. But something about the way that we've cultivated ourselves and our personality is how we encounter the newness, the next thing. Um, and so I was looking at it for me as I've been sick, right? This past like 9 or so days. And in that, I could very well see how I've cultivated myself, what habits I have, like what things was I like, you know, missing, like felt like I was actually like missing. Like I was as in like I miss a person or I miss like a habit, like I'm just like, oh man, I really miss doing this. Or the things that I'm missing, like the things that are not in my routine or my habitual like routines, because I could see those too. And because I'm in this time of like I guess struggle or fire or sickness or whatever it is, I can sort of see what I've been doing outside of this sickness, and realize that like they're, I don't know, that the things that have been cultivated within me are not, um, I guess I'm not completely satisfied with. Like, I could tell that prayer was tough for me during this time. I could tell that, taking care of my body was tough during this time. I could tell that, like, the things that I was watching and, like, how I was cultivating my mind were kind of tough to pay attention to during this time. And I think that it's really important that we realize what we're cultivating in the times that we feel good, because that will ultimately be what shows up in the times that we feel bad. Um, so, so that's the main idea of the topic. And then also, this can also relate to not just like the things we, you know, do or the things we eat or the things we talk about, but it's also the community in our lives too. Like, what have we cultivated in the times of feeling good? Like, who we have in our corner, so that when we are feeling bad or in those low times, we can rely on them. So that's the sort of theme I was kind of going after today. If anyone has
Yeah,
anything.
that sucks. And I don't know how much community you have because, like, I remember being in Atlanta and being sick. Um, yeah, I realized how superficial a lot of my friendships were. Like, it's just one of those things. You learn when you're alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I was going through my surgeries and stuff, and like, I like realized who is, or not just like who is in my corner, but also who I thought was in my corner. Like I had more people in my community than I realized. But it definitely shows you, like, when you don't need something, you don't ask for things. When you need something and you're looking around and say, "Oh, who do I ask?" Things just sort of come to the surface, I guess. What do you got, Scott?
Well, so one of the things that came to mind while you were saying that near the end is is rightly placing all that stuff so that it's not transactional. And in
Mm,
some ways, like, yeah, because that's something like that. Like, because you want to do that and have air quotes people in your corner, but at the same time, that doesn't you don't want that to be the reason you're engaged in it. Like, you know, I want to be able to offer that same kind of thing for somebody else who maybe can't even repay me.
mm.
Something like that.
I Yeah, I guess like the way I think about human beings is like, and community is, we're supposed to use each other. Like I think there's almost like I don't know what it is about the way we've like thought about, oh, I don't want to use you, or I don't want to burden you, or I don't want to whatever. Um, and I think there's a way to like properly use one another, that I think we've sort of like lost. So I see what you mean. Like you don't want it to be just like a transactional, but I feel like if you think of human beings as able to be transactional, but via like love transactions, instead of just like the monetary, like time is wasted or time is gained, or money is wasted or money is gained type of transaction. um that's like, I think, the better way of thinking about it. But just like how to think about that when we're so used to thinking about transactions as, that money exchange.
Hey, Scott, your feedback, and can you hear me?
I switched it to cart. Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's better.
sorry,
Mm,
it wasn't on CarPlay again. Um, the other thing that I was thinking about was what I come to call activities of daily living. That speaks to the first part of what you were saying, and that it matters what we choose to participate in on a daily basis. And yeah, and and then something like actively waiting in those periods of loneliness or uncertainty and not knowing exactly what direction to go,
Mm,
being prepared for the unknown and ready to move
mm,
um, when the time calls, something like that. I think that that goes with what you were saying at the beginning.
Yeah, because I think there's something about like being prepared that people sort of take into almost like the neurotic sense of like, I always have a plan, I'm always planning, I'm always ready. But then I think what I'm talking about, and I think what you're pointing to, Scott, is like more of a preparedness of, like going into war, of like, you're working out and you're, engaging in scenes that are similar to what you'd see, so that you can like be prepared in going into war. You're not planning exactly what the scene is going to look like and exactly where you're going to step and exactly which strike you're going to go for, but you're like prepared for any of those things to come at you. And I think that's like why we have conversations like this, or why we practice certain, I don't know, cultivating certain ways of living, or like stretching or talking or thinking or what have you, so that when something surprises you, like when something you don't expect to happen happens, like in that time of war, you are prepared for that. And if you're not prepared for that, then who you are and what you've cultivated comes out. And that's what I see is like in those times of, in the bad times, what comes out is like how you've cultivated yourself and your preparedness. And even though that's like 1% of your life, it seems like in those like little surprise times, I think that's more of who you are than the other 90% where things are going right and you can sort of bullshit your way through and like it doesn't really matter. It's like in the times that matter, that's who you are. And so you have to be like preparing yourself for the times that matter.
I love one of the things that popped up is a practice of gratitude. So that if you're surprised somehow by those whom you've loved, you can still more rightly act when that surprise comes. Yeah.
Claire, did you have something? I saw that you were in the chat. I was trying to.
I feel I've already said what I wanted to say in the chat.
In the chat,
But
yeah.
I was going to ask you what kind of war you had in mind. A foreign invasion or a civil war? They are somewhat different.
No, that's good. I mean, I think technically, I think both are likely to happen sort of at any time. Like, I think you can conjure up a sort of like internal civil war versus like external foreign invasion. So I think it's really ready for any and all of those things, truly.
Yes, and I think I do keep going on about an official moral system because it is using these principles that you determine who is an internal enemy. Because it's not just the external enemy you have to worry about, because the external enemy can be, well, fought with military means, and you hope that you are able to fight a successful defensive war. But for non-combatants, you need to know who is to be relied on and who shares your values and, you know, whether you have common goals.
And I think that's why I think, at least for me, I think that's why you interact with other people in the first place. Because I think essentially other people are supposed to be a mirror for for you, and like what you see in them that you like or don't like should be then your next step of, oh, I want to cultivate, the resilience of, the other, or I want to like not cultivate the, the weaknesses of the other, or whatnot. And so I think that's why you almost use those interactions with other people in order to say, okay, this is what I want to be able to cultivate. The problem is, I think the next step of that is people don't know how to cultivate it. They just say, I like that, I don't like that. And they think just saying it and noticing it is like enough. And so, how do we take that next step of like practicing and cultivating the things that we actually want to be part of us, so that the next time we encounter, we don't say, oh, that's not me, that's them. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. So that's really the whole point of religion. You have a group, and then you decide what the group is for. And if it doesn't have a defined purpose, then it becomes very difficult to decide who's even in the group. Can anybody join? Can nobody remove them? Is there a leader? What values does he hold? Is he a good leader? And you need all these mechanisms to determine um, whether you actually have a group that is capable of group solidarity. And what I notice about Christians is that they don't really like to discuss theology. They like the idea of talking about theology, but ultimately they're not. Well, TLC is not a group where people accuse each other of heresy and say, "Oh, well, because you what you just said, you have taken yourself out of the fold of Christianity, and you're no longer one of us." And I know it sounds, quite extreme, but and I know this group is about Christian fellowship, but if you cannot discuss what you really stand for and what your, foundational values and principles are, then I think you are in trouble, because you won't know who's actually a good leader, and who can be trusted to, be a member of that group.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Scott, did you have something?
Yeah, so it actually kind of goes with what Claire's saying a little bit. I think once you're able to spot something right out there in the world, it surprises you. You're struck by the beauty of the thing, and then how do you cultivate that in yourself? I think in many ways you start with a bit of mimicry. Like you notice something that like struck you, and you go, wow, I would like to be more like that. And so in many ways the first step is this weird, like, because you don't totally understand it. And I think this is where
Right.
I would say that this is why Claire's got the perspective that she does, is because a lot of times we're just all trying to figure it out, but we're noticing within each other there's these cool little things. And so we're going, oh, wow, I would like a little bit more of that in my life. And so then you just start to mimic. And then in the act of mimicking, you can really see how the dominoes fall, so to speak, in acting that way. And then that's when it kind of then becomes second nature. You're able to truly experience what it's like to be like that. And before you know it, it's a part of you. It's been incorporated into you. That's kind of what I was thinking with what you both said.
Yeah, I almost want to. I think that's great. I think that's so great. I think what both of you guys said is great. But I almost want to, like, say I don't want to necessarily use the word mimic here, and I almost want to say like play with, as in like take a role on stage of like a theater role, and like see how that works out in your life. Like, play it as though it's a role that you're playing in a theater. Because I almost feel like it has to be a little bit more playful than that. Like I feel like it can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna cut and dry like mimic these things necessarily. And I could just be like being incredibly pedantic on that, but there's like something more about the participation in a play rather than I'm mimicking what their thing is, and that keeps that separation versus when you're like playing a role, you're like embodying that role. And then I think that's what actually comes to fruition of like, oh, all of a sudden you're just doing it in real life and it like drops being a role. Whereas like mimicking, it's almost like you have to convince yourself of that, like, I don't know, that deeper participation.
Fake it till you make it.
That's that's also what I was thinking of too. I was like, I wonder if that's where that phrase comes from.
That was
Yes,
literally the phrase I was thinking of.
Yeah.
yes. May
So
I share an experience of a London estuary meeting that I participated in? I think it was in June,
Of
and
course.
what
I said, of course, yes, please.
yes. Um, one of the ladies there, she was a very pleasant black woman. She worked in the church, and she was sort of saying that a lot of the people you could go to her church say a lot of Christian words using Christian speak, but she suspected they didn't really mean it. And I suppose, it's sort
Mm,
of I guess if you're Muslim, you'd say Alhamdulillah. If you're, Jewish, you'd say, Jewish words of, showing that you are, a believing Jew, a believing Muslim, or a believing Christian. I suppose Christians say, God bless. They need us to pray for each other and that kind of thing to show that they believe. And some of it may be perceived to be insincere or artificial, but people do it to show,
can you
well,
guys
I
hear
think.
Claire? Oh,
yeah, Claire, you're breaking up. You,
Did you hear what I was saying though about words that kind of gain you admission as a member
mm,
of that
mm.
group?
Yeah,
Okay.
it it almost reminds me, and this might be a triggering word for people, but it kind of uh, reminds me of like hypocrisy in a sense of like, can you really fake it till you make it um, without being hypocritical? Like, when does it become like it is just like there is no essence behind it? Because like something about that like strikes me as a potential.
so the only time I used that saying, the first time I ever used that saying, and the first time I ever heard that saying was in recovery meetings
Fake
because,
it till you
eh,
make it.
yeah, because
Fascinating.
it, yeah, it was interesting because I guess, and we're talking what, it's 25 years ago, so that's the first time I heard it, and I would say that actually probably longer than that because my parents had gotten sober before I did. Um, but I would say that I used to hear this guy that was actually my dad's sponsor. When he was in a meeting, he was talking about how people judged AA and how he says, people used to say, for old friends of mine used to come up to me. This is him saying this. Old friends used to come up to me and go, "Oh, you're going to those meetings?" He goes, "You're just being brainwashed." And he looked at him and he goes, "You know what? My brain needed to be washed
Mm.
because I was sick. I literally was sick. I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know how to treat people. I didn't know how to interact with people because I didn't even know how to treat myself. And that fascinated me. I was like, wow, like I mean, I'd never looked at brainwashing as being a positive thing. It was always like, it's a cult thing. And then um I heard when I came into the corner, the first time I ever heard somebody say that fake it till you make it is bullshit. And I was like, wow. Like they hadn't had experience with understanding how sick somebody can actually get, to the fact that they literally do have to fake and I thought about working out. Like you might not like it, but you just force yourself to do it. And then eventually you start seeing some of the benefits of the working out, of the eating right, of the being healthy. Surrounding yourself with people like we're talking about, surrounding yourself with people that are more positive as opposed to negative. But I do agree. I mean, it is sad because there'll be people, I know them in the church. Um, I'm blessed to not know as many in the church that do use these things just for entrance. But I also don't know if they are trying to fake it till they make it. Like I don't know if that's what they're doing. Like, are they trying to live as if, like Luke likes to say, or if they're genuinely trying to just be part of something and they're just faking something for that purpose. Because like I can't imagine why transactionally why anybody would want to go to church, unless they're like maybe really old and they're hoping somebody will take care of them later, and they're using the church that way, or if they're in a bad situation, they hope the church will pay their bills. Like unless it's like that, maybe I could see them maybe doing that. But if they're just strictly coming there and acting like they want to be there, and they're not getting anything from it in a in a transactional sense, it's kind of crazy to think. I don't know. But so that's just my thoughts on how.
To
But
be
I
in a
do
safe space.
what.
To be in a safe space, maybe, Brett. You go to church thinking the people there are nice, they won't hurt me, or they'll know they're not supposed to be mean to me. But you were
Mm.
talking about AA, and there's a kind of hierarchy in AA too, isn't it? Okay, you join, and then you maybe stand up and admit you're an alcoholic, and then after that you can start making motivational speeches to other AA attendees. So there is a kind of hierarchy.
I don't know.
You,
We that's not how we see it though, because it's like, and same with Christianity. We would say that we're all equal. And if you talk to somebody in AA, there are some people that take leadership seriously. Like, I'm going to lead this group. This is my home group, and I'm going to always lead this meeting. And they get kind of caught up in the thing, and they feel like that there's somebody. But usually that doesn't last very long. If they're acting like that it usually doesn't work out well for them, because they get a big ego, and it doesn't big egos don't work for alcoholics, in my experience. But having said that, because we all believe that we're equal, and we're not telling each other what to do in that space. That's why they say use I statements. You're not trying to talk, saying we or you. It's for me. So it is very individualistic, because the program kind of has to be, it's like that's how it is. So it is fundamentally different in a therapeutic sense than living life and trying to do something, and participate. And when I came here in TLC, my original intent was that I wanted to engage with people and learn as much as I could about these other perspectives. Um, I certainly hadn't thought of the idea of change. Change wasn't part of my thought, but I also knew that I was worried that it was going to affect me, like in a negative way, potentially. So, but what I have learned is the people that I most love in the TLC, and I can't speak for people that have been here longer, because they may have already developed as much as they're going to develop in their understanding of where they're at. But watching people change in this space and hearing their stories, how they've changed, I think is pretty spectacular. And I also realize that I have changed, but the way I have changed was, I will CW. I do want to talk to him, by the way. Um, I've changed, meaning like I actually am more patient. I am more willing to listen to, like, Luke used to trigger me all the time, you know,
yeah,
and
me too. I just
and but
I
but
love
now
Luke.
but I know, yeah, I love him. I love him. I love him. That's what I'm saying. It's like, so now that I understand, I get to understand him better. The more I get to know him, like I used to think when he used the term universal, I used to think this one thing, and then I realized, okay, it's not that thing. I'm wrong. I am not. So there's a whole
Yeah.
nother type of universalism. So like I kind of I'm able to learn more, and it gives me, that thing. And ironically, whether or not I displayed it right now or not, I actually listen a lot more too.
um,
but
if so, I wanted to go back to the fake it till you make it thing, if we could,
Hmm.
because
Please.
we use that in the medical professional, in the medical profession all the time.
Oh gosh.
I'd like to point to the fact that it's a two-part thing. You fake it until you make it. The problem, and why I do also share some disdain for the statement, is people just stay in the fake it mode. They never aspire to actually make it. And so they then stay there, and then eventually you can see the facades that they put up in their Potemkin village. And unfortunately, in our profession, you do need to have some kind of barrier in order to protect yourself. The analogy I use is the bartender at the bar, right? He's got the bar in between all the great things that are happening out there, and he's able to manage, or she's able to manage and keep the thing going. But so there's that. Um, and so because in the medical field, one of the things that you don't want to do is look like you don't know what you're doing. So the idea is that you're putting on this air of, or this aura of confidence, but that you're going to go and you're going to find, because let's look at it this way. You're representing the entire medical profession. And so there's resources behind you that even if I don't personally know, I know there's somebody that I can go to get the answer and to provide the best outcomes possible.
That's interesting. So you're saying fake it till you make it as an employee, not as a patient. That's what you were talking about.
Well, no, because I think fake it till you make it can work for patients too. Because and this was the other thing I was going to point to, is the fact that you don't know if you've made it until those hard times come up. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Those hard times
Mm-hmm.
come up, and then and this is where I talk about, I know when I mess up that there is a specific fork in the road. And usually I've been given insight into that. And then what ends up killing me the most is when I choose to go the opposite, right? As opposed to like leaning in and just pulling that yoke through the right way. And then contrary to that is when I feel like I am most embodying the thing that I feel is true and right and beautiful, is when I do choose to go down that road and continue to pull the plow despite. And oftentimes what drove me crazy in my 20s is that I would see that divergence, and I would
Mm.
always choose to go the easy way. And as I've gotten older, and it goes to what Paul was saying about the race that I've run. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you run it all the way to the end, because there's these moments where you get tempted to say, what is the point? You've been doing this for, name your timeline of your patience that is now run out, and you just blow the whole thing up, and it's, yeah. So that's how you know if you've made it, is actually in the trying times, which is why
Yeah.
you can't be afraid to suffer. You got to be willing to suffer. You got to be willing to pick up your cross. You got to be willing to die. So
I think
anyway,
that's
I
why they
know.
call it a test. I think that's why it's like, oh, and like the test, the trying times. It's like it's because it's testing in those like the 1% times what you were doing in the 99%, right? It's like, what were you doing before? And this is going to be testing that which you've cultivated.
But correct. So you also have to do the work prior to being at that moment. You have to have
Correct.
practiced, right? Or played in the area to try to like decide what the right move is when that moment comes.
So
Right.
the interesting thing is I was thinking about when I was doing martial arts, Taekwondo, you have this repetition. It's like Karate Kid, you learn the moves and it becomes repetition. And then all of a sudden, real life happens. You have an attacker and you react. And it's probably why I left it, because I realized it became so much part of my telos. It became so much part of my regular way of being, that I didn't even stop to consider whether me doing what I was about to do to that man was right or not. It just happened. It became a reaction. Now, I think like with cops, like they learn a behavior, a defense mechanism, certain behaviors that become automatic, like how they have to behave psychologically with people and all that stuff. So like obviously you can learn these things and eventually develop some sort of uh, I guess healthy balance in your reaction, but you almost have to be in those tested times all the time in order for you to use them properly, right? And because I wasn't engaging in fights or in attacks all the time, I didn't have that ability to strengthen the wisdom to use those things in the fire for me. So like you in your field, you're gonna develop the difficult situation where you're gonna realize the things you've learned, you're able to apply it, but I do agree, if you don't do it, right? Like if you don't practice it, it doesn't become the thing. So like you're not going to really know until you're put into the fire, into the situation on how you're going to react. And that probably for you in your field is like the true tell of whether somebody's cut it, makes the cut or not in this type of field. Like they can know it and everything, but like when the crisis happens, how are they going to react? And then are they able to assimilate and work through that reaction to develop something? I'm just thinking of ER nurses, like what that was like to go through that process, go through all these, wild situations where it's chaotic, and then are they able to settle down eventually in the next situation and start getting some normality to the situation? But I was thinking about B being sick. It's like it's weird. My mom used to say, and it used to annoy me. She used to say, um, "I really feel like God's slowing me down because
Mm-hmm.
She would have a sickness, and she's like, I can't shake this. It's driving me crazy. Like it's not a normal cold. It's but I also realize like he's forcing me to sit with him and like so she would read, and so like there was, and I was always like, oh my like that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. But
No, she's a wise woman, Brett. Listen to everything she has to say.
well, you met her. I mean,
I
I
was gonna ask. I bet that
she,
sounds like she
she's gonna
knows.
outlive she's gonna outlive all of us anyways. Like she's already stood the test of time. Like
I
when I
hope
met her, I was
so.
like, what? That's your mother?
Yeah.
She looks great, is all I gotta say. um yeah, I hope she listens to this too.
Yeah, she had me when she was 18.
That's how old my
um
mom was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had something and it like slipped
I
my
mean, we were
mind.
talking about being in the
Oh,
fire and
slowing
how you
down.
react. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. And so I think, yeah, so a couple of things. Well, one, I think it's true. Like, I I think that the stream that this couple streams I was involved in before I got sick, I was like, I had this like influx of energy that I wanted to do something. I wanted to run. I wanted to sprint. I wanted to like give. I wanted to whatever I wanted to do. And then God was like, no, you can't do anything. Like do nothing. Like sit down. Like stop. And or at least, this is how I'm thinking of it. And the same sort of thing was happening with, when I got hurt with like my knee and my back. It's like at those times I was in a very like I was almost at like a high, and that was like his way of being like, please don't go so high. Like you're going you're getting close to the sun. Like you're going to fall, and so I'm gonna make you fall a little bit, and you're gonna play woe is me, victim to circumstance. But in reality, like if I hadn't done that, you'd have had probably a detrimental fall, and you wouldn't be able to come back from it. Is how I kind of often see that. And then the other thing, because I think Claire is, right to say that, yeah, we need to talk about the war and peace part of it. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because I feel like the way we're talking about how to cultivate and how to ready ourselves for these times of testing, it seems to me, even though we're all talking about different circumstances, it's almost like we know when we have been prepared properly. Does that make sense? It's almost like we can tell that we've been prepared properly in that times of testing. And so there's almost like a way in which we can be cultivated for the way in which we're being tested. And so when I think of like the war, like I don't think it's like you know when I don't have a job or when I get really sick. Like I don't think it's the particulars of those things. I think it's like a bigger existential war that I'm talking about, and therefore I think there's ways of practicing that are better than others. Does that make sense? And so I want to sort of discuss like how we seem to be knowing that when we're tested and we like have practiced properly, like how do we know that? And I think it's because it's in relation to this war that I'm like talking about. And again, I don't know exactly what the war is, but I feel like there is something, and it's not just the individual things. It's a bigger idea. I don't know if that brings up any.
McMo used to talk about Kierkegaard. That was Kierkegaard's good big thing. He was I don't know, I think he's been called the father of existentialism. But
Mm.
he's got some good writing. I mean,
Like most
it's tough.
probably just turned over in his sleep. He's like, oh,
It's tough.
someone mentioned.
It's tough to read. It's tough to read. I mean, you have to, but I think you could handle it for sure.
When you were talking there, I'm thinking of a couple things. One is going up and down the mountain. Two is breathing in and out. The other thing is there was a saying about being too heavenly that you end up missing the opportunities that are right there. So it's kind of like all those things kind of feel like they could be woven together. And it's real easy when you're at the summit of a point to go, it's just so easy. We'll just do this thing. But in actuality, taking these high level things and bringing them down to the practical is probably it's a very difficult thing. And then the last thing I'll say before I go is you keep using the word cultivating, and I'm thinking that in the act of cultivating, you have to tear into the ground. You have to rip it. You have to flip it over. You have to expose. And so maybe there's something like that when you're trying to take these high level things and implement them into the practical or into the practice, right? That there's got to be this turning over, this repentance. And it takes a while, right? Because you do that and then you plant the seed, but the seed doesn't pop up right then and there, right? And it then needs watering and, you know, a bit of time. And then one last thing is I was thinking about diamonds and how they can't be
Mm.
formed without pressure this morning when I was getting ready. I didn't know how it would work in, but the carbon doesn't do anything. It just sits in that pressure to be formed into the thing. So thank you, Megan. I hope you
See
feel
you.
better.
See you, buddy. I was
Thanks,
thinking
Scott.
about
Appreciate it.
what we were talking
Claire,
about
good, and
yesterday.
Claire, good work. Good work in the show. That was a great show.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you for having me back on your thing. I think he did.
I was thinking about what we were talking about yesterday on Luke's channel about the idea of the map and the territory, and I was thinking about it is pretty fascinating because um, the more stubborn someone is, they're sitting there. I'm imagining a guy holding his map and saying, "I thought this map says there's a path here, and yet here we go. There's this huge wall of a mountain in front of me." And the more stubborn person's going to stand there and be like, my map says I should have a pathway here. And they're just going to keep bumping into the mountain or keep trying to climb up and fall down, climb up and fall down, instead of realizing, I think maybe my map isn't accurate. Like maybe I need to find another path, you know, the more stubborn you are. So like the more like you realize, okay, this map that I have that I'm using to navigate this terrain and get to the north, right? What we were talking about, I may now have to find another path, and I may need to rewrite some of this map and realize that this map isn't as accurate as I realized it is. And I don't think that most
Mm.
people are willing to do that. Like they'll stand behind the mountain forever. They're never going to get to the place they're trying to get to because they see it this way. It's like the map is more real than the territory in front of them, and they're just resistant to rewriting their map, you know?
Mm.
And I've been at the wall before, and I've like, holy crap, like this is not how I thought it was supposed to be. And yet here it is. It is what it is. Reality is here, not the map, the reality of it. And so like, okay, now hopefully if I have somebody that can help me navigate around the mountain or the obstacle that I'm dealing with, then yeah. But like, to be more specific, if I have a theological understanding or a worldview that I think makes the most sense, and I can't understand why no one else gets it, or why it's not working out for me, I might have a wrong map. That's the metaphor to reality.
Mm. Um, Thank you. One thing I'll say is the servant, you're behind screen, and I've never met you before, and I just want to make sure that you're real. If you can show me your face or something, you don't have to show it on screen, but before I add you, I just want to know that I'm not bringing something like AI onto the screen.
I
And
think.
then Claire, keep going.
Thank you. I think it's important, as any group that wants to remain in existence, to know what their raison d'être is, which is why they stay in existence, and why maybe they don't know, but they just want to hang around a bit longer to find out, and these rules aren't necessary to see who is a true believer and who's a free rider. And as far as Christians are concerned, I think because all this AA talk that Brett was talking about, it reminded me of a friend who was talking about Jesus a lot, and then I asked him if he believed in the afterlife, and he he clearly didn't. He went, ha, who knows? And that was when I realised he didn't really believe, but he saw, talking about Jesus a lot will make women think that he's a nice guy. And that obviously, helped with his agenda of meeting women. But I think the clear blue water between a free rider and a true believer is when somebody believes in the afterlife. Of course, you could still say, "Well, I believe in the afterlife," but not really. But then I guess you can, test their claim once they say they believe. Thank you.
So then, for a question for you, Claire, like, what do you think this war that I'm pointing to is? What would you say it is?
It's a culture war. It is the war between um, Democrats and Republicans. Republicans used to represent, social conservatism, marriage and family values, and now I don't think they do that now because the culture's shifted so much more to the side of sexual liberation. So it's
I
now
because
become
I do think that like that is a part of the war, but I almost feel like it's bigger than even that. And I think that's what I'm trying to point to. Of even in that context, I feel like it's holding this like larger existential war that we're fighting like inside of it. Um, or like this war is like even bigger than all those things. Like I almost feel like that's just another battle in like a much bigger war. And and so I guess I'm curious like what like how to prepare for these things like in a larger way, because like we can get over and get through this like culture war, but then we're still fighting something bigger. It still feels like we're like, because that's not the end all be all. If we like win this culture war, then we all go to heaven, we're all the best people, like what ends there? And I'm trying to point to something even, I think, something even bigger.
Well, it's group survival, isn't it? I mean, and that's why marriage is, universally promoted by all the five world religions. And, unfortunately, Christianity, is the weakest link. It used to promote monogamy and stable marriages, but that has gone out the window in the last 50 years. Because of the swinging 60s, the sex revolution, and now nobody wants to point to that elephant in the room because everybody's, family or personal behavior even, has been compromised, and they don't want to be, they don't want people saying, oh, but I know you weren't exactly a virgin bride, or, that kind of thing. So I think people fear to even propose the raising of um, standards of sexual morality.
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate though. I think that you'd be surprised because you're so the way that you see Christians is not as accurate as you think. So there has definitely been a tolerance, and there's definitely been a um well, you do you, I'll do me, which is ironically very constitutional in the sense that we're going to let you have the freedom to express your religion however you want to express it. So the hope is that you either figure it out, or that God changes your heart, or like it's not my responsibility. So there are Christians that definitely aren't engaged enough, but there are also Christians that believe that's not my fight, and I'm focusing on a much closer battle in my own family, and they're not getting susceptible to the breaking of the family nuclei. So I do believe that you're right. There has been a consideration that has been tolerated in a lot of church denominations where they've realized the world is what it is, and we're having to kind of accept certain things and just kind of, but for our family we're not going to choose abortion, or but for our family we're not
That's
going to
not enough.
choose. Well, I know you think that, but
Yeah, but I mean, do you think it's enough? I don't think you think it's enough. You
I
just
think
don't
I
want
think I think
that.
Americans are stronger than you realize. I think you have a
I
snippet
don't
of
see
the.
it.
Oh, I know you don't, but we're here. We live
Where
here.
is it? PVK voted for gay marriage, or he chose not to take a position against it.
No, he's not
He,
just not going to be
Are
in a fight about it.
are we staying on
no, I
topic
mean,
here?
because he's
are
well,
we are we talking about the things on topic? I think we need to
No, we're
pivot
not.
slightly.
well,
Um,
yes, it is because it's part of a culture war about the culture of
well,
casual sex that
and,
maybe some of us
and I
want to
was
push back against.
saying I'm pushing back on the fact that that's the most important ideal. Like I know it is. Like I know that there is importance to talking about that the culture war, but for what? I guess I'm saying like why solve this culture war? Like what's the next step? What's after that? Like let's say what you have like proposed like makes the culture war go away. What next? What's the actual, because there has to be something behind that. There has to be like a war behind that we're actually fighting. And I'm trying to say how does solving that prepare us for the ultimate after that?
Would
Are
you?
we
But I don't know what you want. You see, do you want what kind of America you want to live in? I don't
I
know. Have you said what you want?
Well,
like
peace
what
into
I
this.
want?
May I have? I was going to say peace into this house, and I'm listening to you guys. Could I impart maybe one idea?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
It's the idea that we live in two worlds. Biblically speaking, we are to separate ourselves from the world directly. So if you understand that the world will take anybody and lead them astray, and that's the device of the world, is to give people the option. But those who stick scripturally and biblically, and they're sound, is they do things that are not natural, and that's the idea of cutting the flesh away. It's like we have fleshly desires and things we want here, but when we come to know the higher, the Father, we realize it's all about love. It's about building a family in love and looking for those who will do the same, because so many people are they're selfish. They will not live for anybody else except themselves, and they prove it. A lot of people can prove that. And it's like but that's the divide. Is the world. You can't change the world, and the world is going to be there to lead astray. Does that make sense?
See, I have a different feel on this. Is that I appreciate I appreciate living in a love centric lens, or living with a love centric lens, because I don't dispute that's how we should be. But it isn't reality either, because I've realized that no matter how good people try to be, the more you're with them, and you interact with them, and the way they interact with people, if they're interacting with people, they actually aren't as true to what they think that they actually are, or whatever that they desire. So I think that when it comes to like this ideal, which is fine, this is the reason why when you look at God's attributes, there's more than just love and mercy. Yes, love and mercy is probably the things that we cherish the most, but there's also justice, wrath. So there's a lot more to God than just boiling him down to a single attribute. And I think that that's important to hold those things in tension, and it keeps me humble because I'm not as good as I think I am.
Oh, absolutely. No, no. And it's like, I think that's the point of scripture, is that he wants us to come to the end of ourselves and look at it from his point of view. He's a father that's losing children. Now, some of these children, you can have something against them if you want, but does he? And when we walk closer with him, we understand what love truly is. Because I don't really believe, I believe everybody knows what love is because they desire it. But to give it, not very many people do, because uh, it's an exchange, and that's not pure love. But what he came to do is to teach love. It says the Spirit is love, God is love. Uh, if he is love, the whole idea of our sacrifice is to what we want for the better, and to prove that. I don't think we're supposed to live life here. I think it's we're meant to figure this out and to help others try to figure it out if they will. Is that a fair point of view?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say so.
Yeah. So it's not about love. I mean, he is all love, and it's care and response. But it's like I was having a conversation, and it was like some people, they will not come to know the Father without tribulation and distress. That is the only way they will cut their fleshly desires away, is when they lose everything in life, unfortunately. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I
Yeah.
think the more that we're loving, and we show each other, we're showing anybody who's watching what the Father wants from us, their spirit will be provoked if the Father wants to call them. And I think that's why we are supposed to be a different people, somebody that you can pick out of the room and go, hey, that's an albino. I think Christians are supposed to be that way, but we became more like the world than some of the world is, even in faith.
Hmm. um, awesome. Chris Howard is starting right now, or has started, and
Yep.
I want to give everybody last words if they want to speak on this, ideally about the topic, if possible. But do you have anything, Claire?
Yes, I think it is very important that we identify the actual battle that we're talking about. I'm saying it's a culture war, and obviously, if it's a culture war, we will have to talk about morality and philosophy and religion and law. And I guess for many people to keep the peace, they prefer to fudge the issue, and um, and that's not helping because then the
Hmm.
battle lines are not drawn and nobody knows exactly where they stand and maybe don't want to argue about it. Um, and thank you for um, letting me speak.
Thank you for being here, Claire. Servant, you have anything?
uh just I appreciate you guys, and I didn't want to barge in and do any disrupting, but it's loving him is by loving his word, and it separates the world from the reality that we will face. So I just encourage everybody just to hear his word, because that's where faith comes by, is letting your ears hear it. But thank you for allowing me to have a little voice. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Come join us more often.
Yes, ma'am.
Brett, what do you say? What do you say? You get the final word. I got a lot of things I want to ponder, but you get the final word.
It's fascinating to see two extremely different people in their take on things. And it's like, I guess this is what's so interesting about how he made us, um, and how he uses each one of us in different ways. And I guess this is what I was talking about with the map thing. It's like if your map is causing you to not walk through the terrain smoothly, you probably got
Mm,
the wrong map. And you probably
mm,
need to pencil in some adjustments on your map or be willing to do that. But when you're dogmatic about your map, on your in these extreme sides of things, it makes it very difficult to um, become the thing. Now I'm not saying that you should, erase the entire map. Like you have learned things through your walk, so you know what's behind you. You know the mountains that you've overcome. You know the ravines you've gone through and valleys and all that stuff. So like, I think those are important, mainly because when you do approach those things as you're moving forward, you're kind of prepared. I was like, oh, I know what it was like when I had a valley last time. If I go through this, there's a high likelihood I'll get through this mountain, to miss this mountain range, and I'll get to a higher level plane, or whatever it is. So it's about preparedness. I agree. And I just think that we can get so deep in our understanding that we just are so confident, especially now with the
Mm.
internet. Everybody thinks they know everything, and it's so frustrating. And they think AI, like AI is telling me this. Well, that's true, but you also prompted it a certain way, and it's giving you information based off of everything else you've asked. So it's like this weird lens that it continues to allow you to see the same way, even if it tries to give you some facts, but they're distorted. So anyway, it's just interesting. The preparedness,
Yeah.
I like it. Getting sick and, getting you through it. It prepares you, it strengthens you, right? So you don't get
Yeah.
this flu again, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think that yeah. No, I was going to comment on what you said. I feel like if we're still using the map metaphor, I feel like that's almost like the cultivation of like drawing the map, but then always being ready to sort of tear up that map and draw something new. Like that, I think that's that little like part is we're going to encounter something, we're going to encounter newness, and that should be the like the message, like, hey, something is different here. We have to be, something has been uncovered, something has been discovered, and we have to go through that process of then drawing up something new. And I think that's what maturing and growth and all this stuff is. And I think the war, I think, as I'm hearing people talk, like I really feel like the war is that turnover, that constant like I love how Scott used the breath of like the in and out, like that is the war, is like being able to do that turnover and like start anew and get something else metabolized and then encounter the world differently. And so that's the constant breakdown and building that we need to be cultivating. That stance, that way of encountering the world is what I think we need to be cultivating, which is a constant battle. At least for me. At least I think so. So I appreciate you helping me cultivate today, and everyone else who came on stream, and everyone who didn't. I could go through with all the names, but I saw a lot of people, so thank you. And I guess I'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.
Bye, guys.